Anyway...
Change of pace.
Yes, it's sport.
And a rugby special tonight, looking into the big issue, Natalie, of concussion.
Yes, it really is a big talking point, and we can reveal that East Midlands rugby players are helping scientists develop the first ever test to measure the effects of concussion injuries on the brain. It means clubs will be able to decide if and when it's safe for a player to return to action. It's a massive step because concussion is a live and motive issue at the minute after high-profile incidents like this in the Six Nations. Last month, George North was allowed to play on for Wales against England despite being knocked out cold and taking 2 blows to the head. And we've met a player who's only 24 but already has been told to retire or run the risk of a long-term brain injury. Angela Rafferty has this exclusive report.
At that time Jamie Roberts just missed it, commits too early. I think George North has taken a boot to the head there.
This is what concussion looks like on the rugby pitch. And this is what concussion looks like inside the brain. For Gareth, it will reveal any injuries. Concussed in a match before Christmas, he's been sidelined ever since.
Here, for the first time, researchers are developing a series of tests to show the damage that can happen during a concussion and, just as importantly, show when the brain has fully recovered.
People can visualise the injury, if you want, so they can actually better accept the fact that they need to recover and they need to rest.
Is there anything at the minute that can test a player's readiness to return to play after a concussion?
There isn't at the moment. So that is the problem. There are a number of, you want, studies trying to identify perhaps a particular device or, say, a particular test that could give you that answer. But at the moment we haven't got that.
Resist me. That's absolutely wonderful. Brilliant work.
This work could help provide those answers. The Leicester Tigers and other Premiership teams are following the study. Overall, the number of reported cases of concussion went up 59% last season. 23 players were forced to retire prematurely because of injury. It's hoped the work in the lab will, for the first time ever, give clubs a definitive test to decide on the damage done and the best way of dealing with it.
The dangers of concussion is often that the concussion is not recognised and somebody may go back and do things that they shouldn't be doing before they're ready. And when that happens, for example, if a brain has a second concussion before it's fully recovered, the brain can swell up. And as it swells up, the pressure builds inside the skull and that can result in sort of nerve damage, neurological damage. And as I said, potentially there are, very occasionally we hear of players actually have sort of a fatal swelling of the brain.
For Finlay Barnum, any test will be too late. At 24, he's been forced to retire from Nottingham Rugby Club. Concussed in pre-season training, the advice from medics, a return to rugby posed too great a risk to his health.
It's crippling. There's no other words for it. Rugby's one of those sports when you become part of a team, you become part of a club, and it becomes part of your life. It's ingrained in me. So yeah, just got to move swiftly on, get a job, get a real job, join the real world. I'll have no regrets. I've thoroughly enjoyed my rugby career.
Alongside him, another Nottingham professional told 18 months ago that playing rugby would risk him suffering permanent brain damage. He says for years people have played on regardless of concussion, but that has to change.
Concussion doesn't mean out cold on the floor, can't move, so detecting them is one of the difficult things, and that's where the player's honesty needs to come in. I played games before where, looking back, I know I was concussed, carried on and got another concussion in the same game. That has happened to me before, but I didn't know I had to come off the field. I was just, not as educated as we are now.
An answer to the question of what are the risks in rugby is on the horizon, with a test that will help keep everyone safe. Angela Rafferty, BBC East Midlands Today.
Well, joining me now is Luke Griggs from the Nottingham charity Headway. And thanks for joining us, Luke. I mean, it's a real step forward, this test, but will we be able to see the research being used soon by clubs and the RFU?
I think we're still quite some way away from that. I mean, concussion is notoriously difficult to diagnose. So this is very, very positive news that all this research is going on. But I think it's still going to be some time until pitch-side concussion assessment tools are accurate.
This will help at professional level, but what about the thousands of adults and children who play at amateur level?
Well, again, at the elite level, you've got doctors and ambulance on standby should something go wrong. You've got a high level of medical assistance and diagnostics. But at the amateur level, as you say, that people haven't got that luxury. And it's very much a case of, if in doubt, sit it out, because you cannot take a chance with something like this.
There is good news on the horizon because the RFU are launching a campaign tomorrow. We can reveal this tonight to actually educate people, really.
Yeah, and we've supported that campaign. It's an online concussion course to help players, parents, coaches, anybody involved in the game to better understand concussion, better identify it, and then treat it appropriately before then talking about how soon that they can get back into the game after suffering a concussion.
So great news for parents that there will be a tool to look at, but what more needs to be done?
Well, if you think about how far we've come in the past couple of years, awareness is much greater, understanding is much greater, and we're now seeing concussion for what it is, a mild traumatic brain injury. And when people see it like that, I think people are beginning to take a bit more notice and a bit more awareness about what damage could be done if they don't follow the guidelines and instructions given.
Well, Luke, thanks very much for coming in. We have one other bit of rugby news tonight. Leicester Tigers scrum half Ben Youngs and prop forward Dan Cole will both start for England against Scotland in the Six Nations on Saturday. Tigers forward Jeff Parling is also back in England fold after 2 years out with injury and concussion. And that's all your sport, but this debate will continue tomorrow with that news from the RFU. Anne and Dominic.
Indeed it will, thank you.
Indeed, Natalie.